Well, let's drill down now on the Trudeau-Biden virtual summit and what it tells us about the Canada-U.S. relationship and where it might be headed. Rachel Bendayan is the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of International Trade. Michael Chong is the foreign affairs critic for the official opposition Conservatives. And Jack Harris is the foreign affairs critic for the NDP. Good to see you all, and thanks for taking time to speak with me. Ms. Bendayan, let me start with you. So there's alignment clearly on climate change and multilateralism and other important issues. But I guess a lot of people are looking at the virtual bilateral and saying what was missing from the summit closing statements was any forward movement on Buy America or perhaps shipping U.S.-made vaccines to Canada. In fact, the Canadian side didn't even raise those issues, and I guess some people are wondering why not.
Well, thanks, Peter. And I would agree with you that a lot of people are talking today about the important reset of this, our most important relationship. President Biden said that Canada is America's closest friend and most important friend. And I think you saw that play out in yesterday's lengthy meeting. I think back to 2016 and the state dinner when President and then Vice President Biden came to Canada. And I saw firsthand the synergy between the two leaders. And I think that is going to benefit Canada immensely. You know, you mentioned the environment. There is a new North American alliance in order to tackle climate change. You mentioned the economy. I think that there is certainly no greater and more important trading partner for Canada, and the same is true for the United States. I mean, Canada sells more, goods to the United States. The United States buys more goods from Canada than Japan, China, and the UK combined. So there is.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, we didn't hear about Buy American, we didn't hear about vaccines, and I'm wondering whether we should have. Why weren't those issues pressed by Canada? They're on the top of Canada's list of things we'd like to see help from the Americans on, but we didn't get that yesterday.
Well, Peter, I wasn't in the room, but certainly vaccines was raised. It is our government's obsession. Every single angle and every single partner is certainly being pressed for vaccines for Canadians. We know that vaccines are what Canadians need right now, and we are certainly working on it. You see this week the most doses of vaccines coming into Canada, and that will continue to wrap up.
It was raised in it sounds like it was raised in the context of everybody needs to get vaccinated to allow trade to continue, to allow the borders to reopen between the two countries. But we're not hearing that Canada made a plea for the president to deliver U.S.-made vaccines to Canada. But let me come back to that. Mr. Chong, there's clearly immediate movement on the climate change file, something that never happened with the Trump White House. And there's a strong statement from Joe Biden calling for China to release the two Michaels. So what's your assessment of the bilateral?
Well, I think it's a good start to relations with the new administration. But at this point, as with many things with this government, it's just a lot of talk and not a lot of action. As you've pointed out, the government failed to secure more vaccines for Canada that are being produced by Pfizer just across the border in Kalamazoo, Michigan. They also failed to secure an exemption for Buy American policies, particularly important as the North American economy recovers from the economic fallout of this pandemic.
But is it reasonable to expect the Americans to ship vaccine to Canada before they've vaccinated all of their own people?
You know, we've long been close allies, the two closest allies in the world for many, many decades. And when 9/11 hit, Canada opened up its borders to American aircraft that were landing in Newfoundland and ensured that those Americans were safe and secure. And so we believe that both Canada and the United States should work closely together on the vaccination, securing of vaccines during this pandemic. And so we're disappointed that Canada was unable to secure the procurement of vaccines that are being produced by Pfizer just across the border in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay, Mr. Harris, what's your assessment of that first bilateral? Here we are almost 24 hours later.
Well, obviously, you know, it's easy to say it feels good when you're not pushing against a brick wall as we had been for the last 4 or 5 years. And, you know, and it's very reasonable to expect Mr. Biden not being Mr. Trump and being a more reasonable person to accept, I guess, some responsibility to take action with respect to the two Michaels, given that the action was in retaliation for a U.S. request for extradition and the consequence of that. So we're very happy to see that, clearly, but it's not as has been said, it's an important first step in that we're rebuilding a relationship. But I don't see any big wins. It's nice, it's great that we have a partner next door who's on the same page with respect to commitments, at least on paper, for the climate change. We want to be working with the Americans on the same direction on that. It's good to have them do that. But again, we have to look at the results. What are the results going to be? There was very good, feel-good meetings with Mr. Obama at the same time a few years ago, but we didn't, the makes a difference if it makes a difference, and we don't know that yet. Clearly, on the climate front, the Americans are going to make a very heavy investment in innovation and in infrastructure. We're not going to necessarily be able to participate in that. We didn't see any real act of friendship in the sense of recognizing that Buy America should be included a North American context.
Let me.
We didn't get any sense that there's any real change.
Rachel Bendayan, let me. It occurs to me maybe there's a pivot there. I mean, if the focus is going to be climate change and greening of economies, does that perhaps present an avenue for Canada on the Buy American file? If you demonstrate to the Americans that you're in lockstep with greening your economy and moving forward on climate change, is there a possibility that makes them more open to considering Canada for an exemption on Buy America?
Well, I think the possibilities, and we see them already, are huge. When I read, the readouts, when I look at the notes of what President Biden said specifically, he talked about a new clean infrastructure plan with Canada. He talked about cross-border electricity being transmitted between our two countries. There are enormous economic opportunities that are going to stem from the alignment on environment and our fight against climate change with the United States. And to be honest, I think that this is extremely heartwarming and extremely important for the Canadian economy. I can't help, with as much respect as I have for my NDP colleague opposite, I can't help but say that it's very hard to take the NDP seriously on the question of yesterday's bilateral, when hours before they released on Twitter a fake agenda of this meeting between the incoming president, the new president of the United States, and our prime minister. Is that really the approach the NDP wants to take with our most important trading partner and ally?
I think Mr. Singh jumped in to say that was a mistake, but it happened. You're right. So, but Mr. Chong, let me have you pick up on that. Are there advantages for Canada if you have these two continental partners moving in lockstep on climate change? And what are the advantages and what are the possibilities that might present for Canadian business?
Well, there will be no advantages for Canada if we're locked out of this economic recovery. The president has proposed a $1.9 trillion economic recovery plan. A large portion of that is for a green recovery. But that will be of no benefit to Canada if we cannot secure a Buy American exemption. And so we're disappointed that the government of Canada that the Prime Minister was unable to secure it. I might add, Peter, that I'm happy that the issue of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Staver, who have now been held in detention for over 2 years, was raised. But I'm disappointed that the Prime Minister did not appear to raise the issue of the Uyghur genocide, nor did he appear to raise the issue of Canada joining the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, which we believe Canada should join, which we believe is essential if we are to start to work with our allies to defend Canada from the threats that China is posing to our citizens, our companies, and our values.
Mr. Harris, let me finish on you. We did get I think certainly the strongest statement we've heard on the two Michaels from a U.S. president in 6 years, 5 years. What we didn't hear is how he plans to back that up. He said Canada and the U.S. will work together for the release of the two Michaels. What do you want to hear next?
Well, I think we want to see results. Obviously, this has gone on incredibly in a terrible situation that has enormous consequences for Canada, as we've seen. America has to do something, whether it does it behind the scenes or whether it does it in public. If it works, it works. I think their action has to be taken, and the proof of the pudding is going to be whether we see anything.
You're talking about dropping the extradition. You want them to drop the extradition case against Meng Wanzhou?
Well, what mechanism is used or chosen? I think the Americans may have a lot of ability that we don't necessarily see and know. But dropping the extradition, of course, would be a most direct way. But there was, I think, a clear indication that they don't, that they're not expected to do that, or they're not intending to do that.
Lots to watch as the relationship continues to develop with the Biden administration and the Canadian government. Thank you all for your time today. We'll talk again.